Dead Island 2, How the Story Connects to Dead Island. About 10 years after the events of Dead Island, the United States government and U.S. military are forced to put California under a full quarantine restricted zone due to a new and stronger zombie outbreak. The night after a high-profile party, for playable main characters, hereafter referred to as the survivors rapper Sam B, hotel receptionist and spy for the Hong Kong government Xian, former football star Logan Carter, and ex-police officer Purna Jackson, are awakened by a voice over the emergency intercom system directing them to evacuate the hotel. They discover that the majority of the population have been overcome by a contagious and infectious plague, turning them into psychopathic, flesh-eating creatures. Briefly overcome by one of the infected, they are rescued by lifeguard John Sinamoi. The survivors discover that they are apparently immune from infection, and with the voice out of contact, the survivors are tasked by Sinamoi to try to find supplies and contact the outside world. As it becomes obvious that the resort lacks enough supplies to survive for long, Sinamoi instead has them travel to the city of Moresby to find help. The survivors take along Xian, the daughter of the bitten mechanic who modifies an armored car they used to break out of the resort. Upon arriving in Moresby, after taking down a new special infected known as the Ram, the survivors aid a holdout at a barricaded church. Directed first to the wealthier sections of town, they ultimately raid a supermarket under the control of rascal gangs. Xian tries to offer supplies to another rascal faction, in the abandoned police station, who capture and rape her. The gang kill the rascal members and rescue Xian, but her actions angered Sam B. Upon their return to the resort, the survivors make contact with the voice. Introducing himself as Colonel Ryder White, a Benoi Island Defense Force, BIDF, commander. He is currently trapped in a high-security prison located on a remote island, only accessible through the jungle. He states that due to the character's immunity, he could create a cure/vaccine, and in turn save his bitten wife. White directs the survivors into the jungles of Benoi, having them find a smuggler named Mauen who can reach the prison. Mauen stonewalls the survivors on the prison, but does take them to a lab studying the plague. Their researchers determine the infection is a mutation of Kuru that originated from the indigenous population. At their behest, the survivors collect a tissue sample from a native mummy to better examine the pre-mutation form of Kuru and rescue a native woman, Urima, who was about to be sacrificed by her tribe. Mauen finally agrees to take the survivors to the prison. After the survivors complete the preparations that he and Xian requested, they hurry back to the lab when White reports that something's gone wrong. They find the zombies the scientists were studying were accidentally released, with only Urima still alive. Rescuing Urima and retrieving what appears to be a prototype vaccine, the survivors proceed to the prison island. The survivors initially help the surviving prisoners to arm themselves in exchange for reaching White, but when White finally contacts them again, he urges them to abandon the prisoners and proceed to him. The prisoners' holdout eventually falls and Mauen dies, helping Xian and Urima escape. As the survivors are about to reach White, however, they are hit with a knockout gas inside their elevator. Awoken by a tech-savvy prisoner named Kevin, they learn that White stole the vaccine and are warned that he intends to flee with his wife and call in a nuclear strike to purge the island. Racing to the roof helipad, the survivors find themselves held by White at gunpoint. Xian, disgusted by White's plan, releases White's now zombified wife from her restraints, and she bites White on the wrist. White kills his wife and shoots Xian dead, then injects himself with the vaccine, only for it to accelerate and amplify his own mutation. The survivors kill White, then finally escape Benoi with his helicopter as Kevin intones that things will never be the same. Ryder White's campaign. 2 weeks prior to the outbreak, Ryder White, a colonel in the B.I.D.F., is interviewed by a commanding officer. He is presented with a series of targets and asked if he would kill each without question. White agrees he would kill all including after some hesitation, his wife Emily. Those viewing the interview note this and have him reassigned to Benoi, where Emily also works. They speculate that he won't push the button because of her. Upon the zombie outbreak, White is overseeing the bombing of bridges to slow the infection, but his helicopter crashes in Moresby when the co-pilot turns. Alerted that the main bridge in Moresby remains intact, he proceeds to recover the demolition charges from the rascals and carry out the demolition himself. He is contacted by Emily, who has taken shelter inside the prison with the help of a man known as Kevin. Upon extraction from Moresby, White hears from Emily that she has been bitten by one of her zombified patients. Disregarding his wife's pleas to leave her, White has himself dropped off at the prison, intent on saving her before ordering a nuclear strike to purge the island. By the time he arrives, Emily has almost turned. Kevin then contacts White over the intercom, offering to help him as well. When they meet, however, White identifies Kevin as Xian, a notorious terrorist-affiliated hacker. However, with no other options, he follows Karen's instructions to restore emergency power and find antibiotics for Emily, fighting off armed escaped prisoners. Xian also tells White he has survivors en route with an antidote. After administering the antibiotic to Emily, Xian notifies him that a group of prisoners are approaching in reprisal for the ones that White killed to obtain the tetracycline. With the prisoners dead, White travels to the control room in Block C and meets up with Xian. As White approaches, he discovers that Xian was behind the deaths of the scientists at the laboratory, including Drive West, but hides his suspicion. He is then instructed to clear the zombies from the shower room in Block C for when the heroes arrive. With the shower room cleared, White uses the sewers to return to the control room. While eavesdropping on Karen's conversation with the group, the survivors from the main campaign, he discovers that Xian has been posing as him, the voice. Out of rage, White threatens to kill Xian for endangering Emily and making him betray his country. Xian then assures him that the group have the antidote and that the heroes won't trust either White or Xian if it is revealed that they were never actually speaking to White. Xian then instructs White to store knockout gas above the elevator lift that the group will be using, so they can steal the antidote from them and avoid having to negotiate. After placing the gas and returning to the control room, Xian and White watch the heroes pass out from the gas. Before leaving to retrieve the gas, White destroys the control room's computer to prevent Xian from pulling any more tricks. He then locks Xian in the control room and tells him that he's going to get the antidote for Emily. Xian replies to White stating that the antidote would only work on people that were in the early stages of infection, which Emily is already well beyond. Shaken by his words, White runs off to get back to Emily in the intensive care unit. With White gone, Xian reveals that he had a hidden backup key card and taunts him, stating that White should have killed him when he had the chance. Afraid of being too late, White collects the antidote from the group and frantically fights through countless waves of zombies to get back to Emily. Upon finding her, White finds she has already become an infected. White then vows to make a complete antidote out of the serum. He brings Emily to the roof, where he discovers that Xian has turned the group against him. Jean releases Emily to attack White, forcing him to kill his wife. White then kills Jean in retaliation. He injects himself with the antidote only to discover that it was actually an enhanced version of the plague, which transforms him into a powerful special infected. He is then killed by the group. The survivors then flee to safety using White's helicopter. It is revealed that Xian plans on using Urema as what Drive West called her, a walking time bomb, to spread the plague.